Joining me now, Sky News Darwin Bureau Chief, I was going to give you another title there, Matt Cunningham, and Sky News Brisbane Bureau Chief, Adam Walters. Gentlemen, welcome. Matt, I'm sure you can remember, like me, that Axe the Tax campaign. The Midas, it really was the end of Kevin Rudd, or the beginning of the end of Kevin Rudd. It looks like there's a 2.0 coming Anthony Albanese's way. Give us your take on it.
Well, I do wonder, Peter, whether, for starters, I think that it's not a sensible policy idea. I mean, we have a gas crisis on the East Coast, and the reason we have a gas crisis is because there's a lack of supply. I don't see how taxing gas is going to increase supply. In fact, you'd have to say that the most likely outcome of that is that it could potentially put in doubt some new gas development. So it doesn't really make sense. But from a political point of view, I do wonder whether it would have the same impact, a campaign against this tax, as that campaign against the mining tax had back in 2010. Now, the minute that campaign started, as you say, it spelled the end for Kevin Rudd. That super profits tax that he was proposing was just seen as ridiculous. It was opposed by those in the mining industry who rightly made the point that the Australian economy had been built on the back of that industry. I just wonder in today's political climate, when environmental activists, have so much to say, when we've just seen the Teal Independents have a massive influence at the last federal election, whether the government might get away with something like a gas tax, and whether the industry would be able to protest against it as well as it did back in 2010. So it's going to be an interesting debate that we have. But as I say, from a policy point of view, I don't think it's good policy at all.
Gas and thermal coal will particularly be targeted, we're told, if it gets up. Adam, this is a big deal in Queensland. What's your take?
Well, it's interesting to hear what Matt said there as well. The mining industry seems to think that the government is making this up as it goes along as part of its narrative for meeting those emissions targets. They're saying it's basically a case of 2 and 2 equals 5 by suggesting that consumers are going to benefit. They are concerned about the impact this is going to have on our reputation for reliable supply. And apparently Jim Chalmers and the Prime Minister have already assured Japan that the tax isn't necessarily an option and that Australia will remain a reliable supplier of these resources.
Matt, you're a former Victorian, former editor here at the Herald Sun, so you know this political landscape well. Big debate about the spending promises in the Victorian election campaign, billions and billions. Word out today that Victoria's credit rating could be hit, given the largesse being thrown around by both sides in this campaign. And in fact, they say it's the worst fiscal position for Victoria. It is in the weakest fiscal position in 40 years. That's not a surprise, but it is a concern.
Yeah, of course it's a concern, but how much of an election issue is it? And that's the question. Are governments still held accountable for economic management? And I think that to a certain extent, they're not held accountable for that these days at all. I mean, we've heard in the last couple of weeks that Victoria's debt is greater than New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania combined, and yet each day you're seeing both parties going out and announcing new spending. You have to wonder, whether Matthew Guy, how he would fare if he turned around and he said, this debt is out of control and we're going to do something about it. Would he be rewarded by voters for doing that, or would he be punished? Because these days it seems like governments can just, announce as much spending as they want, and the fact that they're accumulating this debt just seems like a side issue. And I think through COVID, governments basically got a free pass in many ways on the debt and deficit side of things. The fact of the matter is, though, there has to be a day of reckoning. When you rack up that much debt, there has to be a day where you pay that debt back, and that's going to influence everyone. That's going to affect everyone in Victoria when it eventually happens. I'm just not sure that's going to be front of mind of voters when they go to the polls next Saturday.
I tell you, I'd vote for the candidate that says, I'm not going to lie to you and I'm not going to spend your money. I'm going to put more money back in your pocket. But we're not seeing that down in Victoria. Adam, national unemployment rate fell further today, 3.4%. I mean, this is sort of historic levels. It's a job hunters market. It's a market for them. It's not necessarily a market for businesses. They're struggling to stay open. We know they can't get workers, particularly entry-level positions, despite having 1 million people here in Australia on the dole. I was interested in an article from the Wall Street Journal today about work, specifically what they say, the decline of work in a spoiled society. It was in response to another sort of story that was written in the New York Times to fight back against the inhumanity of modern work. I don't know, I belong to an age where there's dignity in a job, but I think we're looking pretty spoiled when you read these sorts of articles.
Absolutely. This Wall Street Journal story made for disturbing reading, I think, spotlighting a dubious new culture that focuses more on so-called work-life balance than genuine productivity. It quoted one Fortune 500 company chief executive saying the company's pet bereavement program was in danger of being out of control to the point where questions are being asked about whether someone gets a whole week off if their goldfish dies, and the propensity of more employees to work from home is a big worry for companies in the post-COVID environment, I think, when CBDs are trying to resurrect their once lively precincts. It'll be interesting to see how all the talk from our politicians and their acquiescent chief health officers about a fourth COVID wave will impact on the confidence of CBD hospitality and retail businesses around Christmas as they still try to recover from 2 years of pandemic disruptions, Peter.
Gents, got to leave it there, but it's sobering stuff. Adam Walters, Matt Cunningham, thank you.